Come with me on a visit to Warwick Castle, one of Britain's most famous castles. Originally built by William the Conqueror, Warwick Castle has had many owners throughout the years, and it's currently owned by the Two Swords Group, and they've sort of done a lot of renovation to it, making it a great family day out. The castle is pretty much split into two halves. You have the original medieval part of the castle, and then you have the still original but remodelled Victorian Edwardian part of the castle as well. So you can see this is the Great Hall, which is an incredible room, and I believe it's the original sort of structure, but it's obviously been redone throughout the years to reflect the changing times and changing fashions. Famously, Richard Neville, known as the Kingmaker, was the Earl of Warwick, and he imprisoned King Edward IV of England here at Warwick Castle. He then ruled in the king's name for a bit, but then the people of England demanded that the king be released, and then subsequently Richard Neville died later on as well, fighting King Edward IV again in battle. There's lots of history with regards to the War of the Roses modelled in with the history of Warwick Castle, but again it's much too in-depth to get into, which should really deserve its own video. Because the castle is run by Madame Two Swords, the Two Swords Group, they have brilliant waxworks and tableaux everywhere, and my personal favourite of course is the fact they have Henry VIII and the 6 wives all held here. I believe they used to be in Madame Two Swords itself, but obviously they've moved on or changed, and I know Queen Elizabeth, the Mary Queen of Scots, are there, but so here are all the queens living their best lives. Unfortunately he is still there as well, but the less said about that the better. But it is fun to see things like that, and it really adds to history, I think, when you have things displayed and have things out, and it just adds to it instead of having blank and empty rooms. So this is the room of Daisy Greville, Countess of Warwick, and she's said to be the inspiration behind the song Daisy, Daisy, Give Me Your Answer Do. This is one of Warwick's most famous centrepieces, the working trebuchet. It's absolutely amazing to see in person. It's fully functioning, fully working, and I think it's the only one like that in the world or in England, but it is fantastic. They do a whole show and it's just brilliant to watch. Everybody was just agog when the whole crowd was watching. It was amazing. And then, as I said, you get into the actual medieval bowels of the castle, the foundations that were originally there, and this is what the rooms would have been used for. This is how they would have seen, smelt, how dark they were, people just living their everyday lives within the inner precincts of the original castle as it would have been. And like I said before, having these waxworks out in tableaus, it just brings everything to life so much more than just having an empty room with a plaque saying this is this, that is that, which is obviously all good and well, but it is just nice to have a bit of a change, to have these tableaus in place. I really appreciate them anyway. I can't do a trip to one of these places without doing a little bit of digging into the ghost stories behind the castle as well. A man named Sir Greville was given Warwick Castle in 1604 by King James I. He was a very powerful man, and he'd served under Elizabeth I as well. And when he died, or just before he died, he'd made a will, and he had a very loyal servant called Ralph Hayward, who read the will and felt that he wasn't getting his just deserts from serving his master all this time, so he took umbrage at this and seemingly stabbed Sir Greville quite viciously in the heart, and he lived actually quite a long time afterwards, about a month. He died in awful agony, and it's said that there's a portrait of Sir Greville up on the wall, and it said that his ghost comes out of the portrait, and it's in the Watergate Tower where his study used to be. Although that's quite a sombre note to end on, Warwick Castle is an amazing place to visit, and I highly recommend.